Today I'm going to show you guys a little of a retouching here from a car, from an interior of a car, and also this is an image that I would actually throw away because it's not a good image. I would rather reshoot this, but I thought it's a good image for you guys to show you how to retouch this image and show you guys some techniques. So let's get started with that. Okay, so I'm in the Adobe Bridge already, and under my contents area you guys can see that we've selected here an image. Actually this shot is the shot that I want to throw out, so I thought this is actually a nice shot to show you guys in a quick tutorial how to get more out of this, and it would be actually good for a tutorial. So this is an image that I would use for my work now. I would actually go and reshoot this, obviously because there's here and there a little bit of like some finger marks still, there's a lot of reflections, and lighting wise it's not that good, so I wouldn't use it, but I thought good for a tutorial, so let's start working on this today. Alright, so I'm going to double tap now here into my contents area and open that in Camera Raw. And first of all, what I want to do now is also do a double raw conversion, meaning that my first image I'm going to just concentrate here on the top part, on this light part, and for the second image down here just on the dark parts. So I've already worked on this image. I'm first of all just going to go back here and set this to Camera Raw defaults, so everything is set back to normal. That's how it came out of the camera. Okay, so as you guys can see, quite bright down here and quite dark down here. We need to compensate for that. First step that I'm going to do now is just adjust here my temperature a little bit. I'm going to take it down to say 4,400, actually 5,400 Kelvin, a little bit bluer already, not too warm. Then as well, also going to play a little bit with my exposure here, maybe -10, just a little bit. And also taking the highlights down a little bit, actually making it a little bit flatter because of this bright spot here. I don't want it to be pumping as over here. So breaking that highlights just a little bit. We can obviously later in Photoshop add a new curves adjustment layer and pump that up a little bit. So I'm happy with my highlight to being at -43. Then as well, shadows, I'm going to leave the shadows for the moment. My whites as well down just a little bit. Blacks, push them a little bit to give it a bit more contrast again, -12. Okay, then as well, workflow options down here, select that, open as a smart object, tick this box, that's very important for me. I want to do a double raw conversion. Hit OK, that will be opened in Photoshop as a smart object. Okay, so I'm not this guy who works with Camera Raw a lot. I am taking this directly into Photoshop and say open object. Okay, so it has opened in Photoshop already, as you guys can see down here, layer number 1. I'm going to double tap on here and just rename that to Raw 1. Okay, and as if you also struggling with RAM on your computer, then you can just simply go down here like me and press right click and quit Adobe Bridge. I'm going to press F for full screen mode, and we're already saving a little bit on RAM and everything is running smoothly. Okay, so the next step that I want to do now is obviously a double raw conversion. So this is my first layer, and I'm just concentrated now on this area. Now we want to concentrate on the second area, but also do that in Camera Raw. So simply I'm going to just press here right click, or actually not right click, there's a little trick here. You can't duplicate just this normal raw layer or just right click and paste it and copy paste, because if you're going to readjust this now in Camera Raw, this raw 1 layer will also be adjusted. So you have to do it via a copy. Meaning that we can go now up to layer, smart objects, and copy this new smart object via copy. So select that and you already have raw number 2, which I'm going to rename now to raw 2. And now if we take it back into Camera Raw and adjust this, the first image here will not be adjusted at all. Everything will stay the same. So double tap on the small little icon here. That will take us back into Camera Raw. Okay, and we are back in Camera Raw with the same settings and everything, and now we're not paying attention to this, literally just down here. So I'm going to keep the same temperature color because I don't want to get a new temperature onto those both different images. They should look the same. Then as well, my exposure down here, I can push that a little bit up to brighten that a little bit. Little trick here, if you don't even have any detail in here, like over here in the back corner, I don't have any detail, I can push the blacks, the shadows, everything all the way up. There will be no detail, so you don't even need to try that. If you have an image that's completely dark, rather go and reshoot. Okay, also my highlights, I'm going to push them a little bit again to get a little bit of a pop down here. So I normally call this a pop. It's basically just brightening all these highlights and they're popping more. My shadow as well, I'm going to take the shadow all the way up, and you will see that we're getting way more detail now once we take the shadows all the way up. As you guys can see now, we're slowly starting to get a bit of detail here, but I don't really need it, maybe a little bit. So that's what I mentioned. If you don't have any detail there, it's not worth adding more and more shadows. I'm actually pretty happy with this now. Maybe the white's up a little bit, black's down, give it a bit of contrast again. And I'm also going to take the shadows just down a little bit again. Okay, 2 plus 40. Not really paying attention to this here at the top. I'm more concerned about this part, also the steering wheel and all the little details here. Okay, pretty happy so far. I'm going to also import this into Photoshop, hit OK, bring that back into Photoshop as a new smart object. Okay, so now in Photoshop, as you guys can see now, this is layer number 1, so raw 1 and raw 2. So they will not, or the raw 1 will not be affected. Okay, so I also need more RAM on my machine, so I'm actually taking both layers now. Hold shift, take both layers, press right click, and I'm rasterizing them straight away. Okay, so now I have 2 simple normal layers. What I'm going to do now is also change my blending options of layer or raw layer number 2, so we can switch this just to lighten. So everything that is lightened in that first layer or in the second layer here will only be visible now. So as you guys can see, I did need to retouch quite a lot. Now we already have image number 1 and image number 2 actually combined in one image. You can definitely see it over here at this spot, just gets super bright and blown out completely. So now it's our next stage that we're going to do is we're going to work with some masks and just brush certain elements back in. Okay, how to do that? Simply we're going to go down here to the new layer mask icon, hold Alt so we can create a hidden mask. And you guys can also now see everything is being hidden. Now we're going to take our brush, B for the brush, again switch our foreground colors here in the front. So we're going to switch that back to white because we're painting on a hidden mask. 100% opacity, it's a little bit too strong for me. So what I'm going to do now is just take it to 80%. And as well press Ctrl Alt to feather my brush quicker. My hardness should go at 0. And then obviously if I go left and right, I can change the brush sizes as well. I'm also working with a Vacuum Continuous 4 tablet or 5 tablet at the moment. So I'm able via this wheel here to also change my brush size really quickly. So I would recommend, if you retouch a lot, get yourself this board. Okay, so simply now on this mask, I'm going to zoom a little bit closer, actually a little bit out again. And we're just brushing here on certain elements. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. You will also see me going like this all the time, meaning that I change my brush sizes frequently and quite a lot. Okay, so I'm going to brush over here now, bringing a little bit more detail here back on the steering wheel. Not too much. And I don't want to go over this area because I'm obviously going to brighten this area as well. So I don't want to do that. Okay, a little bit down here to the steering wheel. A little bit over here. And down here, and a little bit over these gadgets here, the radio and stuff. Okay, not too much. Okay, also want to go into the gadgets here on the speedo. Okay, a little bit in here. That is getting super bright now over here and there. Okay, maybe a top part, lightening that a bit, and on the side. Okay, not too much. I'm actually going to switch back now to say around just 30%. And also brushing this part away. This is getting super light now, so just brushing that away. Again, with black foreground color, we're painting back the mask. Okay, over here just a bit. As you guys can see, if I pick up my brush a few more times, that gets brighter and brighter. Also correcting my mistakes here again. Okay, I'll zoom out a little bit. B for the brush again, just some areas. Tap, tap, tap. Yeah, that's good actually so far. And now we can have a look here again. So before and after, before and after. Also watch out that it's not getting too patchy, as I can see over here. So I'm literally just going to brush once over there, change my foreground colors again, 10% opacity, and now I'm just tapping. I'm not making a stroke. So tap, tap, tap. Okay. Before and after, before and after. Okay, so pretty happy with that so far. I'm going to take both of these layers, press Command G, and just write here raw conversion. So that is all with the raw conversion. Now what I'm going to do is press Command, Alt, Shift, and E, make a master shortcut. So we're merging all layers together to one. I'm going to rename that to Retouch. And on this layer, I'm just going to do simple stuff like fixing little areas. I'm going to clone and heal little areas and just fix everything that I need to retouch and make it look a little bit more wow, clean it up. Now what I want to also say is that obviously this image is not good enough. This whole area over here, a lot of fingerprints and everything, we should have actually just wiped off the steering wheel ones. So you don't need to struggle with this in Photoshop now. So, but obviously this is a tutorial, so this would be a part that I would do in the photography side already and not in Photoshop. Over here I can see a little spot, so I'm going to press J for the healing brush tool, make this a little bit bigger, hold Alt and just brush this away. So just cleaning up small little areas that point out to me. Over here as well, just with healing brush tool, little spots away. It's quite dark there, we don't have too much detail. This little guy over here, and it's also very blurred, so not too much of a struggle. Press Command Z. Okay, then we're also going to go through the image a little bit. I can see we can also actually go over here, clean this up a little bit. J healing brush tool. And now I would actually sit here for a few minutes and just spend a bit of time cleaning up all these little areas, getting your image to look really, really nice. So spend more time on cleaning and fixing things that will take your image already 50% up and nice, and make it obviously nicer. But same like with beauty retouching, spend a bit more time just on the skin and fix all little areas so that your image looks a little bit better already. So I'm not going to spend now too much time on this. It's obviously a tutorial and you guys don't want to sit here for ages, watch me do healing and cloning and all that stuff. Okay, so next step that I want to do as well is also get a little bit of this reflection out here. So as you guys can see, the guy who photographed it had a red shirt, so everything is reflecting in red here, which is horrible actually. We should have watched out for that. So let's also retouch that out. Next step that I want to do now, to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to create a path around this area here, around all the silver sides where we have reflections, and around this. And I'm going to fast forward the video a little bit. I'm literally just going to do a path. Then I'm going to stop again and show you guys what I'm doing. So I don't want to keep you guys waiting and watching me for ages do the path here. I guess you guys know about this already. So I'm going to fast forward the video now a little bit. Okay, so I've created already one path. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see where the path is. So it's all the way around the steering wheel now. And next step that I'm going to do is also create P again for the pen tool, and again create a new path also around this little star here. Also going to fast forward the video a little bit. Okay, so I've created a path now, not the perfect path, but anyways, you guys can now see where I've created a path around. Next step that I'm going to do is still in the pen tool. I'm going to right click and say make a selection. Now also with zero feathering again, okay, and we have a nice selection now around our area. Next step, again in marking tool, I'm going to press right click again and say save this selection. I'm I'm going to save this now under SW just for steering wheel, and I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit OK and have that selection saved in case I need to call it up again. Okay, so next step, we're going to do an adjustment, and we're going to do a hue and saturation adjustment layer. As you guys can already see, once I've selected this with the adjustment layer, the whole selection here is under a mask. So now it's a hidden mask at the moment. You can't actually see it, but over here we have our mask over there. So what I want to do now is also, maybe we can do it like this. I can take the saturation all the way down, and as you guys can see already, this area is completely desaturated, so we have no color whatsoever in it. Okay, so again, switch it on, take hue and saturation back to 0, and now first of all I want to go into different channels over here under my masters. I want to go into reds. First of all, we can also take the reds all the way up, so you can actually see where we have reflections over here, 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 and loads of here. So first step, we're going to take all the reds out, no reflection whatsoever, and now we still have a little bit of this blue tint in here. So I'm also going to go into the masters again and under blues, and just take the blues down a little bit. If I'm taking all the way down, I don't think that suits it too good. So literally maybe just to around 60%. Bear in mind, I'm also at some later stage now going to add a little bit of a color cast, a cross process to this, so it will suit the image again at the end. So -50, that's around good for me, and I'm pretty happy so far with that. Okay, and this is obviously just affected this area around the star and all our little chrome areas over here. Okay, so next step that I still want to do is also add certain spots of lightness with some curves adjustment layer. First step that we're going to do, back to adjustment, back to curves, and in curves now under RGB as well, I'm just going to brighten again a few areas. So I'm going to take out the highlights a little bit up, also the black parts down here, just a bit of contrast again, not too much, and I'm now literally just concentrating onto this area over here, bringing a little bit of light back into there. So again, before and after, before and after. And later, once we're done with all, we're going to do a final curves adjustment layer here on the complete image. Okay, so on that layer, press Command I, invert that, B for the brush, white foreground color, 100% opacity. I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller, also super feathered, and I'm just literally brushing this area over here, brightening those gauges here a little bit. So, well, here in South Africa we call it gauges. Okay, brightening that a bit more. Okay, so again, before and after, before and after. Watch out so we're not blowing out this again. So X foreground color, switch again, just darkening that area. Okay, happy. Now next step that I want to do as well is first of all make a group here, just Command G, and right here maybe gauges. Okay, and take the curves and just move that into there. The hue and saturation and retouch, we can actually take that out. So there we go. Now what I also want to do is open just gauges again, and back in here, back to adjustment layer. And I want to go and create another hue and saturation adjustment layer, and also just give this a little bit of more color. So I'm going to just take the saturation up just a little bit, just boost those colors a little bit. Say to +13, here's a before and after, before and after. And again, I just want to clip it to this area. So hold Alt, go to between the layers, and just clip that again to this area over here. So again, just affecting our gauges there. Okay, again, before and after, that looks good so far. Okay, so for the next step that I want to do as well, gauges, brighten them up a little bit. Now we're going to do a little bit of selective brightness here, just on some areas. So again, go back to adjustment, back to curves, and I'm just going to brighten some areas a little bit and give this a little bit of contrast. So overall brightening and darkening areas again, giving the whole image a bit more contrast. Okay, so again, before and after, before and after. As you guys can see, this also pops a little bit more, so taking the contrast down a bit more. Brightening up a little bit, so giving the overall image just a bit of brightness and contrast again. I think contrast is still a bit too heavy. Okay, and this area is still irritating me quite a lot with the blue spots everywhere, so I'm going to take that out as well a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to minimize gauges again, and also on top of that, I'm going to work a little bit here on these areas with hue and saturation again. So another adjustment layer, again hue and saturation. I'm going to just take the hue and saturation down just a little bit further. Also going to press Command I to invert that mask. B for the brush, white foreground color, 100% opacity, and I'm just going to brush a little bit over these blue spots here. brushing them out just a little bit. Okay, so we have a little bit more silver in that certain areas. Also over here a bit. Okay. And that looks a bit better. Again, before and after here. Okay, so next step that I also still want to do is just create 2 new layers for dodge and burn. Or actually just one this time. So I'm going to create a new layer, Command A, select the whole canvas, M for marking tool, right click, fill this again with 50% gray, okay. And we're going to switch this now to overlay to have a little bit of a harder effect for the dodge and burning process. Okay, so I'm going to press B for the brush, 0.7 on my keyboard, so we have 7% opacity, Control Alt and feather my brush completely, 0 hardness. Okay, now I'm also going to work just a little bit of selective areas again. So I'm literally just tapping, brightening this up a little bit. Also here giving this star a little bit of a sparkle again, brightening that center a little bit. Okay, and around the steering wheel. And now just going along all the edges where we have a bit of highlights already. Tap, tap, not too much these areas, they're quite bright already. Down here a little bit. And a little bit on the steering wheel, down these areas a bit. Giving that a bit of pop again. Also around the gadgets here, everywhere where we have a little bit of highlights already. Okay, not too much, a little bit maybe in here. There's also still some red reflection on here. So on my hue and saturation layer, I can actually switch back to that and just simply go in here, fix that area with just 00 on the keyboard, so we have no opacity whatsoever there, or full opacity. Okay, like that. Okay, switch back to our dodge and burn layer. We can also rename this here to D and B for dodge and burn if you want to create also a group and also rename that dodge and burn. Okay, on the D and B layer, back with B brush, 0.7% opacity. Make my brush a little bit smaller again. Okay, and I'm just brushing along the highlights still, giving those highlights a really nice pop here. Also all the small areas. Okay, just a little bit over here, a little bit more on the gadgets. Gauges, sorry for that. Gauges, that's what's the name. Okay, a little bit more, and I'm going to switch now to black foreground color, and now we're going to darken a bit. So obviously again just in selective areas around here a bit. Also want to brighten this a bit, so I'm going to switch with X again, foreground color, just dodging this a bit, not too much. B again, also going to the top, darkening this area, and now also the shadow parts a bit. Giving this a bit of structure again and a nice detailed push here. Okay, and this is obviously now, I'm just doing it roughly and really quickly. Spend more time doing this. Okay, around here. And that's actually good to already, I don't want to brush this too much over here. Okay, let's have a look if we're going to go one step over here, giving that a bit of contrast. So again, before and after, before and after. So just a little pop there as well. Watch out that you're not doing it too strong so it doesn't look too punchy. Too dotty or punchy, as you would say this. You can also still take down the opacity just a little bit in case. Okay, so last thing that I want to do is again go back to adjustments here. Create again another curves adjustment layer here. Just pumping that a bit more. Giving that a bit of a pop again. Not too much the highlights here, just a little bit. So before and after. Okay, and one last step that I still want to do now as well is go back to adjustments and back to selective color. And in the neutral tones now, I'm going to switch here and play a little bit with my yellows. So take a little bit to the magenta side. So as you guys can see, more magenta, not too strong. We can obviously also change our opacity again afterwards, but rather leaving it a little bit -6. Also taking the blacks just a little bit -1. Okay, that's a bit too strong, maybe -10. Also let's have a look magenta here at the top. -1 as well, and our cyans, if you want to have it more blue, you can also work a little bit on the cyans. I'm going to have a look here before and after, so it's quite strong though. I'm going to take it down just a little bit, say 90%. And again, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's also press Command Alt Shift E, master shortcut. And we have a complete new layer now. Merged everything together. I'm going to take simply all layers now. I'm going to take simply the last one, double tap on here, rename that to Final. Okay, and also switch off all the rest. And just the basic raw adjustment here. So this is again our before and after, before and after. So again, as I said earlier, I'm not too happy with this image. I would rather go back and shoot again. This is a throwaway image. So, but still showing you guys in the tutorial with a few simple steps how to get a little bit more and nicer wow out of this image. But believe me, I'm not 100% happy with this. I would go back and shoot again. Alright, yeah, so that's basically all for today's Photoshop tutorial, guys. Do let me know in the comments down below what you think about this tutorial. Then as well, bear in mind, this is an image that I would throw out of the batch. It's not a good image, so rather reshoot that. Then as well, support me with a like, subscribe, and we'll see you all next week for a new creative Photoshop tutorial.